Kyiv sounds the alarm. A deal favoring Russia means another invasion. Washington and Moscow prepare for the Alaska summit. Ukraine and Europe fear peace built on surrender. Trump prepares to meet Putin. The world waits. Will it end the war or spark the next one? Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued a sharp warning ahead of a meeting between Washington and Moscow, insisting that any settlement favoring Russia risks paving the way for a future reinvasion. In his evening address on August 9th, Zelensky rejected Russian President Vladimir Putin's proposal that Kyiv cede occupied territories to end the war.
We will not allow this second attempt to partition Ukraine. Knowing Russia where there is a second, there will be a third. That is why we stand firm on clear Ukrainian positions. We must end the war with a dignified peace based on a clear and reliable security architecture. Our partners are ready to help us with this. We are not making everything public. Everyone can clearly see Putin's tactics. He fears sanctions and is doing everything to get out from under them. He wants to exchange a pause in the war, in the killings, for the legalization of the occupation of our land. We must end the war with a dignified peace based on a clear and reliable security architecture. Our partners are ready to help us with this.
The Ukrainian president also warned that if Russia does not face punitive action, it will eventually restart its aggression towards Ukraine, citing a lack of swift action during Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, as well as delayed assistance ahead of the start of the full-scale invasion.
Putin was allowed to take Crimea, and this led to the occupation of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. He did not receive preventive punishment when he amassed a contingent on our borders. This led to the full-scale war and the occupation of even more parts of Ukraine. Now Putin wants to be forgiven for seizing the south of our Kherson region, Zaporozhye, the entire territory of the Lugansk and Donetsk regions, and Crimea.
Zelensky's remarks came ahead of an August 15th meeting in Alaska between US President Donald Trump and Putin, where the Kremlin leader is expected to push for a ceasefire deal in exchange for Ukraine surrendering its eastern regions. The Wall Street Journal reported on August 9th that Ukrainian and European officials have rejected Putin's proposal for a ceasefire in exchange for Kyiv to cede its eastern territories to Russia. The EU and Ukrainian officials instead offered a counter-proposal to US officials ahead of the planned meeting in Alaska. Two European officials familiar with the talks told the Journal that Europe aims to draw a unified red line with Ukraine, insisting that EU officials should be involved in any potential peace negotiation with Russia, and reiterating that Ukraine's future cannot be discussed without Kyiv's participation. According to the Journal, the counter-proposal presented to Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Trump's Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg, and Steve Witkoff also demands that a ceasefire be enacted before further steps are taken, adding that territory can only be exchanged in a reciprocal manner. The New York Times reported on August 9th, citing two EU officials, that European leaders are increasingly concerned that Trump and Putin will formulate an agreement that will then be imposed upon Ukraine. A senior European official told the Journal that any agreement reached in Alaska between the US and Russia would not hold much weight without the participation of European leaders. In a post on X, French President Emmanuel Macron said,
I have just spoken again with President Zelensky, as well as with Chancellor Merz and Prime Minister Starmer. We remain determined to support Ukraine, working in a spirit of unity and building on the work undertaken within the framework of the Coalition of the Willing. Ukraine's future cannot be decided without the Ukrainians, who have been fighting for their freedom and security for over 3 years now. Europeans will also necessarily be part of the solution, as their own security is at stake. I will continue to coordinate closely with President Zelensky and our European partners.
Moreover, the Ukrainian president emphasized that Ukraine's sovereignty is not negotiable.
Russia's desires to rule over Ukrainian territories will remain just desires as long as Ukrainians stand shoulder to shoulder, helping the army and helping the state. I have just received a report from our team in the United Kingdom from Andriy Yermak. There have been talks between security representatives of the United States and Europe, Ukraine, the United States, Vice President Vance, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, and Poland. The meeting was constructive. All our messages were conveyed. Our arguments are being heard. The risks are being taken into account. The path to peace for Ukraine must be determined together, and only together, with Ukraine.
Despite rejecting Putin's plan, Zelensky voiced confidence in the US president's ability to broker a fair settlement.
What is needed is not a pause in the killings, but a real, lasting peace. Not a ceasefire sometime in the future, months from now, but immediately. President Trump told me so, and I fully support it. Third, I have not yet heard any of our partners express doubts about the U.S.'s ability to ensure that the war ends. The President of the United States has the leverage and the determination. Ukraine has supported all of President Trump's proposals, starting back in February. Contacts with the American side are ongoing, almost around the clock, at various levels.
Zelensky and European leaders have repeatedly urged Washington to tighten sanctions against Russia. While Trump had set an August 8th deadline to impose new sanctions if no deal was reached, the measures have yet to be implemented. The White House is considering inviting Zelensky to peace talks in Alaska. NBC News reported on August 9th, citing White House officials, that the proposal is being discussed. One White House official told NBC News, referring to Zelensky's presence in Alaska.
Everyone is very hopeful that would happen. The president remains open to a trilateral summit with both leaders. Right now, the White House is focusing on planning the bilateral meeting requested by President Putin.
Another White House source told CBS News that the situation remains fluid and may potentially involve Zelensky. Trump initially suggested Zelensky would participate in the meeting as a precondition for peace, but later changed course to hold an initial meeting with Putin, followed by a proposed trilateral summit involving Zelensky. While the Ukrainian president signaled he is ready for such a format, Putin claimed he does not oppose the meeting in principle, but added that certain conditions must first be met. It was not clear whether Zelensky would participate in a trilateral meeting or separate meetings the day of the summit if he is invited.